Play the circle game. If you use my 4-minute, 4-circle goal setting system described earlier, you can be the creator of your universe. You know, that's blasphemous. A seminar student once told me during a break, only God can create the universe. But if you believe that, I said, you must also believe, as it is written, that we were all created in God's image. And if you believe in God as the creator and that He created us in His image, then what are we doing when we don't create? Whose image are we living in when we deliberately do not create? Try this. After you wake up in the morning, wipe the sleep from your eyes, sit down with a pad of a paper, and draw 4 circles. These are your own planets. Label the first circle, lifelong dream. And in order to keep this example simple, I'll make it strictly financial. Although you can do it with any kinds of goals you want. Your lifelong dream might be to save $500,000 for your retirement years. So put that number in your life circle. Then look at circle 2, the next planet in your solar system. That circle you will label my year. What do you need to save in the next year in order to be on course to hit your life-saving goals? When you factor in the interest, it's less than you think. And when you arrive at the figure, make certain that it matches up mathematically with your first circle. In other words, if you save this amount and save, say, 10% more each year that follows, will you achieve your life number? If not, do some more math until you get a direct connection between your yearly savings projection and your lifelong goal. Now that you have got your first 2 circles filled with a number, move to the 3rd circle, my month. What would you have to save each month to hit your year's goal? Then put that number down. 3 circles are now filled. Now go to the final circle, my day. What do you need to do today that if you repeated it every day would ensure a successful month? By the way, as I said, this doesn't have to just be about money. It can be about physical fitness, learning a language, relationship networking, spirituality, nutrition, or anything important to you. The power of this system lies in thinking of it as a universe, which, as Wayne Dyer keeps reminding us, means one song. When you work the math, you cannot help but see that each circle, if done successfully, guarantees the success of the next circle. If you hit your daily goal every day, your monthly goal is automatically hit. In fact, you don't even have to worry about it. And if your monthly goal is reached, the yearly goal has to happen. And if your yearly goals are hit, the lifelong goal cannot be reached. Cannot not be reached. When you study the irrefutable mathematical truth contained in the system, a strange feeling comes over you. You realize that all 4 circles are ultimately dependent on the success of just one circle, the circle labeled my day. Then you get the strangely empowering sensation that you have just proved on paper that your day and your life are the same thing. There is no further future other than the future you are working on today. Your future is not stranded out there somewhere in space. This is what the great poet Rainer Maria Rilke meant when he said, "The future enters into us in order to transform itself in us. Long before it happens, Remember that once you have worked out the math for this, the circle game is only a 4-minute daily exercise. Many times in seminars I give, participants will say that they are too busy for all this goal-setting activity. They have lives to live. They have lives to live. They have lives to live. But I like to remind them of the words of Henry Ford, who said, "If you do not think about the future, you won't have one." And I also like to stress that I'm only talking about 4 minutes a day. The purpose of making the circles mathematically sound is that you can remove the elements of faith and hoping from your action plan. You know your goals will be hit. Who will you want to be bet on? The tennis player who has faith that she's going to win, or the one who knows she's going to win? By drawing the simple 4 circles, you can create your universe anywhere, anytime. Waiting in line at the bank, sitting in the doctor's office, waiting for a meeting to begin, or just doodling. Each time you do it, your universe gets closer to you. Each time you draw the circles, you are hit with this revelation. There is absolutely no difference between succeeding today and having a successful life. In The Magic of Believing, Claude Bristol recounts a particularly absent-minded habit of his that, looking back, may have had a bigger impact on shaping his universe than he ever realized. He said that whether he was on the phone or just sitting in moments of abstraction, he would always have a pen or pencil out doodling. My doodling was in the form of dollar signs like these. On every paper that came across my desk, the cardboard covers of all the files that were placed before me daily were covered with these markings. So, were the covers of telephone directories, scratch pads, and even the face of important correspondence. Bristol's later studies on mind stuff experiments, the power of suggestion and the art of mental pictures, caused him to conclude that his lifelong habit of doodling dollar signs had had an enormous impact on programming his mind to always be opportunistic and enterprising when it came to money. The fortune he acquired demands that we take his observations seriously. Get up a game. It is said that John F. Kennedy's father's credo was, "Don't get mad, get even." And that credo has a certain vengeful, clever wisdom in it as far as it goes. But you might go even further with this credo. Don't just get even, get better. When Michael Jordan was a sophomore in high school, he was cut from his high school basketball team. Michael Jordan was told by his coach that he wasn't good enough to play high school basketball. It was a crushing disappointment for a young boy whose heart was set on making the team, but he used the incident not to get mad, not to get even, but to get better. We all have those moments when people tell us or insinuate to us that they don't think we measure up, that they don't believe in us. Some of us have entire childhoods filled with that experience. The most common reaction is anger and resentment. Sometimes it motivates us to get even or to prove somebody wrong, but there is a better way to respond, a way that is creative rather than reactive. How can I use this? It's the question that puts us on the road to creativity. It transforms the anger into optimistic energy so we can grow beyond someone else's negative expectations. Johnny Bench, a Hall of Fame baseball player, knew what it was like to not be believed in. In the second grade, he said, they asked us what we wanted to be. I said, I wanted to be a ball player, and they laughed. In the eighth grade, they asked the same question, and I said, a ball player, and they laughed a little more. By the 11th grade, no one was laughing. Our country has gone through a difficult period of time since World War II. We no longer value heroism and individual achievement as we once did. Competition has become a bad word, but competition, if confronted enthusiastically, can be the greatest self-motivating experience in the world. What some people fear in the idea of competition, I suppose, is that we will become obsessed with succeeding at somebody else's expense. That will take too much pleasure in defeating and therefore being better than somebody else. Many times during conversations with my children's teachers, I am told how the school has progressively removed grades and awards from some activities so that the kids don't feel they have to compare themselves to each other. They are proud of how they have softened their educational programs so that there is less stress and competition. But what they are doing is not softening the program, they are softening the children. If you are interested in self-motivation, self-creation, and being the best you can be, there is nothing better than competition. It teaches you the valuable lesson that no matter how good you are, there is always somebody better than you are. That's the lesson in humility you need. The lesson those teachers are misguidedly trying to teach by removing grades. It teaches you that by trying to beat somebody else, you reach for more inside of yourself. Trying to beat somebody else simply puts the game back into life. If it's done optimistically, it gives energy to both competitors. It teaches sportsmanship, and it gives you a benchmark for measuring your own growth. The poet William Butler Yeats used to be amused at how many definitions people came up with for happiness, but happiness wasn't any of the things people said it was. Instead, insisted Yeats. Happiness is just one thing, he said, growth. We are happy when we are growing. A good competitor will cause you to grow. He will stretch you beyond your former skill level. If you want to get good at chess, play against somebody better at chess than you are. In the movie Searching for Bobby Fischer, we see the negative effects of resisting competition on a young chess genius until he starts to use the competition to grow. Once he stops talking it personally and seriously, the game itself becomes energizing. Once he embraces the intriguing fun of competition, he gets better and better as a player and grows as a person. I mentioned earlier that I heard a report on the radio that there was a little league organization somewhere in Pennsylvania that had decided not to keep score in its games anymore because losing might damage the players' self-esteem. They had it all wrong. Losing teaches kids to grow in the face of defeat. It also teaches them that losing isn't the same as dying or being worthless. It's just the other side of winning. If we teach children to fear competition because of the possibility of losing, then we actually lower their self-esteem. Compete wherever you can, but always compete in the spirit of fun, knowing that finally surpassing someone else is far less important than surpassing yourself. If you are better at a game than I am, when I play against you and try to beat you, it's really not you I'm after. Who I'm really beating is the old me, because the old me couldn't beat you. Turn your mother down. Psychologist and author M. Scott Peck observes, to a child, his or her parents represent the world. He assumes that the way his parents do things is the way things are done. In Dr. Martin Seligman's studies of optimism and pessimism, he found out the same thing. We learn how to explain the world to ourselves from our parents and more specifically our mothers. This tells us that young children listen to what their primary caretaker, usually the mother, says about causes, writes Seligman, and they tend to make this style their own. If the child has an optimistic mother, this is great, but it can be a disaster for the child if the child has a pessimistic mother. Fortunately, Seligman's studies show that the disaster need only be temporary, that optimism can be learned at any age. But it is not self-motivating to blame mom if you find yourself to be a pessimist. What works better is self-creation, to produce a voice in your head that's so confident and strong that your mother's voice gets edited out and your own voice becomes the only one you hear. And as much as you want to eliminate the continuing influence of a pessimistic adult from your childhood, remember that blaming someone else never motivates you because it strengthens the belief that your life is being saved by people outside yourself. Love your mom. She learned her pessimism from her mother and change yourself. Face the sun. When you face the sun, wrote Helen Keller, the shadows always fall behind you. This was Helen Keller's poetic way of recommending optimistic thinking. What you look at and what you face grows in your life. What you ignore falls behind you. But if you turn and look only at the shadows, they become your life. When I was younger, I remember hearing other kids tell a joke about Helen Keller. Have you heard about the Helen Keller doll? They would ask, you wind it up and it bumps into things. I have often thought about that joke and why such a joke about someone who was deaf and blind was funny. I think the answer lies in our nervousness about other people overcoming huge misfortunes. Perhaps we laugh nervously because we haven't overcome our own small ones. In our own day and age, we are quick to consider ourselves victims. We are all victims of some sort of emotional, social, gender, and racial abuse. We enjoy taking what difficulties we have had in life and blowing them up into huge injustice. Helen Keller didn't complain about being from a dysfunctional family or of being a woman or of not being given enough money from the government to compensate her for her handicaps. She had challenges most of us can't even imagine, but she refused to become fascinated by them and make her handicaps her life. She didn't want to focus on the shadows when there was so much sun. There is a bumper sticker that I see every so often as I am driving around. Life is a bitch and then you die. I always wonder about that bumper sticker because it seems illogical. Life is that bad, that should be welcome. The sticker should say life is a bitch, but the good news is you die. British author G.K. Chesterton used to say that pessimists, like the person with that sticker on his car, don't stay anti-life very long when you put a revolver to their heads. All of a sudden, they can think of a million reasons to lie. Those million reasons are always there, down inside of us, waiting to be called off. Our pessimism is usually a false front put on to get sympathy. Another popular bumper sticker has been shit happens. I happen to consider that bumper sticker to be ironically optimistic. It's one of the qualities of optimists that they are not surprised, overwhelmed, or offended by trouble. They know that trouble comes and they know they can handle it. Some people have been upset by the popularity of this slogan, and I have seen them try to counter with the sticker, love happens. Actually, they have it wrong. Shit does happen, but love does not. Love doesn't happen all by itself. Love is created. In his stirring book, Sean Rice, Very Neil Kaufman tells an astonishing true story of how he and his wife healed their once autistic Sean and helped nurture him to a happy, extroverted life. Kaufman and his wife made a conscious choice to see their son's disability as a great blessing to them. It was just a choice, like choosing to face the sun instead of facing your shadows. But as Kaufman says, the way we choose to see the world creates the world we see. Travel deep inside. Most of us wait to find out who we are from impressions and opinions we get from other people. We base our own so-called self-image on other people's views of us. Oh, do you really think I'm good at that? We ask when someone compliments us. If we are persuaded that they are being honest and have made a good case, we might try to alter our self-image upward. It's great getting feedback from others, especially positive feedback. We all need it to live and feel good, but when it is all we have got, we are in danger of being far less than we could be because our self-image always depends on others. And all they see is what we are risking right now. What they never see is what's inside of us, waiting to emerge, because they can't see that they will always underrate us. Your journey can be You can travel deeper and deeper inside to find out your own potential. Your potential is your true identity. It only waits for self-motivation to come alive. For this is the journey that men and women make, said James A. Michener. To find themselves, if they fail in this, it doesn't matter much else what they find. Let positive reinforcement and compliments be a mere seasoning to your life, but prepare your life's meal yourself. Don't look outside yourself to find out who you are. Look inside and create who you are. Go to war. Anthony Burgess was 40 when he learned that he had a brain tumor that would kill him within a year. He knew he had a battle in his hands. He was completely broke at the time, and he didn't have anything to leave behind for his wife, Lani, soon to be a widow. Burgess had never been a professional novelist in the past, but he always knew the potential was inside him to be a writer. So, for the sole purpose of leaving royalties behind for his wife, he put a piece of paper into a typewriter and began writing. He had no certainty that he would even be published, but he couldn't think of anything else to do. It was January of 1960, he said, and according to the prognosis, I had a winter and a spring and summer to live through and would die with the fall of the leaf. In that time, Burgess wrote energetically, finishing 5.5 novels before the year was through. Very nearly the entire lifetime output of E.M. Forster and almost twice that of J.D. Salinger. But Burgess did not die. His cancer had gone into remission and then disappeared altogether. In his long and full life as a novelist, he is best known for A Clockwork Orange. He wrote more than 70 books, but without the death sentence from cancer, he may not have written at all. Many of us are like Anthony Burgess, hiding greatness inside, waiting for some external emergency to bring it out. I believe that's why my father and many people of his generation speak so fondly about World War II. During the war, they lived in a state of emergency that brought out the best in them. If we don't pay attention to this phenomenon, how crisis inspires our best efforts. We tend to brainlessly create a life based on comfort. We try to design easier and easier ways to live so that we won't be surprised or challenged by anything. People who get the knack of self-motivation can reverse this process and get that wonderful World War II sense of vitality into their lives. Athletes do it constantly. How do you feel about tonight's game with the Trail Blazers? A reporter once asked basketball star Kobe Bryant, "It will be a war out there," he said with a twinkle in his eye. "We don't have to wait for something tragic or dangerous to attack us from the outside. We can get the same vitality going by challenging ourselves from within." A useful exercise for self-motivation is to ask yourself what you would do if you had Anthony Verghese' original predicament. If I had just a year to live, how would I live differently? What exactly would I do? Use the 5% solution. Many years ago, when I first began considering the idea of changing my life, I went through some emotional mood swings. I would get very high on an idea of who I could be, and I would set out to change myself overnight. Then my old habits would pull me back to who I used to be, and I would become demoralized and depressed for weeks, thinking I didn't have what it took to change. As the weeks went by, I finally caught on to the idea that great things are often created very slowly. So why couldn't great people be created the same way? I began to see the value in small changes here and there that led me in the direction of who I wanted to be. If I wanted to be someone who was healthy and had a good eating habit, I would introduce a salad here, a piece of fruit there, and take the creative process very slowly. Now I almost never eat red meat, but it didn't happen by simply ruling it out one night. All the times I tried that, my stomach, which used to far outrank my mind in my internal chain of command, would rule it back in the first time I smelled a barbecue in the neighborhood. Psychotherapist Dr. Nathaniel Branden is known for the effectiveness in his therapy of using sentence completion exercises. By asking his clients to write out or speak 6 to 10 endings quickly without thinking to a sentence stem, he allows people to explore their own minds for their hidden power and creativity. A typical sentence he might ask you to complete 6 to 10 times would be, "If I bring 5% more purposefulness into my life today, then you, the client, give your rapid endings to the sentence." That's how you find out what you think and secretly know about your own power to add purpose to your life. One of the fascinating aspects of Brandon's sentences is the 5% part. It seems like an awfully small amount of change when you look at it, but think of how it would play out. If you brought 5% more purposefulness to your life each day, it would only be 20 days before you had doubled your sense of purpose. Huge things can be accomplished by focusing on one small action at a time. Novelist Annie Lamott recalls an incident in her childhood, the memory of which always helps her get a grip. 30 years ago, she remembers, "My older brother, who was 10 years old at that time, was trying to get a report on boards written that he would had 3 months to write, which was due the next day. We were out at our family cabin in Bolinas, and he was at the kitchen table close to tears, surrounded by binder paper and pencils and unopened books and verse, immortalized by the hugeness of the task ahead. Then my father sat down beside him, put his arm around my brother's shoulder, and said, 'Bird by bird, buddy, just take it bird by bird. When we stay the same, it's not because we didn't make a big enough change, but rather because we didn't do anything today that sent us moving toward change. If you continue to think of yourself as a great painting you are going to paint, then wanting to instantly change is like wanting to finish your portrait in 10 minutes and then put it up in the art gallery. If you see yourself as a masterpiece in progress, then you will realize a small change, a tiny thing you did differently today will excite you. If you want a stronger body and you took the stairs and seat of the elevator, celebrate. You are moving in the direction of change. If you want to change yourself, try making the changes as small as they can be. If you want to create yourself like a great painting, don't be afraid to use tiny brush strokes. Do something badly. Sometimes we don't do things because we are not sure we can do them well. We feel that we are not in the mood or at the right energy level to do the tasks we have to do. So we put it off or wait for inspiration to arrive. The most commonly known example of this phenomenon is what writers call writer's block. A mental barrier seems to set in that prevents a writer from writing. Sometimes it gets so severe that writers go to psychotherapists to get help for it. Many writers' means of earning a living depends on its cure. The block or lack of self-motivation occurs not because the writer can't write, but because the writer thinks he can't write well. In other words, the writer thinks he doesn't have the proper energy or inspiration to write something right now that's good enough to submit. So the pessimistic voice inside the writer says, you can't think of anything to write, can you? This happens to many of us, even with something as small as a postcard to send or an overdue email to answer. But the writer doesn't really need psychotherapy for this. All he or she needs is an understanding of how the human mind is working at the moment of the block. The cure for writer's block and also the road of self-motivation is simple. The cure is to go ahead and write badly. Novelist Annie Lamott has a chapter in her marvelous book Bird by Bird called 50 Fresh Drafts. The key to writing, she says, is to just start typing anything. It can be the worst thing you have ever written. It doesn't matter. Almost all good writings begins with a terrible first efforts. Says Lamott, you need to start somewhere. Start by getting something, anything, down on paper. By the mere act of typing, you have disempowered the pessimistic voice that tried to convince you not to write. Now, you are writing, and once you are in action, it's easy to pick up the energy and pick up the quality. Singer-songwriter Jon Stewart says, when you are in the first stages of creating, never ever censor yourself. We are often afraid to do things until we are sure we'll do them well. Therefore, we don't do anything. This tendency led G.K. Chesterton to say if a thing is worth doing, it's worth doing badly. Going out for a run gives me an example of the same phenomenon because I don't feel that I have a good, strong run in me. The voice says not today, but the cure for that is to decide to do it anyway. Even if it will be a bad run, I don't feel like running now, so I'm going to go out and run slowly in such a lazy, bad form that it does me no good, but at least I will have run. But once I start, something always happens to alter my feelings about the run. By the end of the run, I noticed that it had somehow become thoroughly enjoyable. In my self-motivation seminars, I often give a homework assignments for people to write down what their main goals are for the next year. I ask them to fill no more than a half page. This is not a difficult assignment for people who are willing to just come off the top of their heads and have fun feeling the pace, but you would be surprised at how many people absolutely anguish over it, trying to get it right, as if they were going to be held forever to what they write down. Many people simply can't do it. To get them to complete the exercise, I say put anything down, make something up. It doesn't even have to be true. They don't even have to be your goals. Just do it so you can understand the exercise we are about to do. The point is to just do it. In many years, we are all novelists like Annie Lamott. Our novels are our lives, and many of us get a tragic form of writer's block that causes us to not write anything at all. It's tragedy, because deep down we are very creative. We could write a great life. It's just that we are so afraid of writing badly that we never write. Don't let this happen to you. If you are not motivated to do something, you need to do, just decide to do it badly. Add a little self-deprecating humor. Be comically bad at what you are doing, and then enjoy what happens to you once you are into the process.